What's going on, everyone? This is my guide to Leotheras the Blind in Serpentine Cavern. Leo is one of the easier bosses in SSC, but can still cause some issues if you're not prepared. First up, for raid composition, you're going to want to bring 1 to 2 standard tanks and 1 warlock with a fire resistance set. Ideally, your fire resistance tank is going to want to get as close to 365 fire resistance as possible. Although I've personally done Leo with a lock using about 230 resistance, it was noticeably rougher than a fully capped tank, but it was still manageable. For healers, you're going to want to bring 5 or 6, whichever you're comfortable with. As for the rest, DPS, as usual, ranged DPS has a much easier time on this fight than melee due to the whirlwind. Hunters also need to be mindful of their pets with the whirlwind. The encounter begins once the 3 Grey Heart Spellbinders have been killed. There's no big rush to kill these, so don't waste cooldowns or anything here. Be sure to have interrupts on their Mind Blast casts whenever possible. Once all these die, Leotheras will become active. You'll want to spend the time while the Spellbinders are being killed to get into position. Use this as a reference. All the range is spread out, forming a circle around the boss with the melee and the tanks in the center. Once the boss becomes active, he will be in his human form. His mechanic during this phase is a whirlwind, which he will cast every 15 seconds, and the whirlwind itself lasts for 11 seconds. While he is doing this, he will randomly target players and start whirlwinding in their direction. Everyone needs to run away from him during this, as demonstrated here. If you are hit by whirlwind, it will cause a 15-second bleed that ticks for 2.5k every 3 seconds, so you need to try your best to avoid it. With a bit of luck and good positioning, ideally Leo will spend the majority of his time while he is whirlwinding in the center, bouncing between people, not actually reaching them. This minimizes the damage taken from the whirlwind ability completely. DPS also need to be aware that Leo drops threat completely after the whirlwind, so your DPS, you need to go easy, and your tanks need to try to pick him up as soon as possible. His human form phase lasts for 60 seconds from when he became active, at which point Leo will enter his demon form phase for a further 60 seconds. When he transitions into a demon, it is a complete threat wipe. DPS need to hold for a moment to allow the fire resistance warlock to start building threat with Searing Pain. During this phase, the boss will cast Chaos Blast on his target. This also has a small AoE splash around the target, so the group should position away from the warlock tank. Chaos Blast is also the reason that you need fire resistance on this fight. Each time you are hit, the fire damage taken is increased by a further 1675 damage, and it stacks 20 times. Once your warlock tank has threat, this is a good opportunity to use Lust in your cooldowns. Roughly 23 seconds after entering the demon form, the boss will cast Insidious Whisper, and 5 players will be debuffed with an Insidious Whisper debuff, and an inner demon ad will spawn linked to a debuff player. These ads have 12.2k HP and can only be targeted and damaged by the player that they are linked with. These ads must be killed within 30 seconds or you will be mind controlled. Things to note with the inner demons are that they take increased damage from arcane, nature, and holy spells, and they take reduced damage from shadow and fire spells. They can also be feared and stunned, but fearing them is just not recommended because they will run out of range, and it just causes issues. After the boss has been a demon for 60 seconds, he will return to human form. This is of course another threat wipe. The group should try to reposition into the same kind of layout that they were in the previous human form phase. The human in the demon phase was rinse and repeat until the boss hits 15%, at which point the demon form will also spawn alongside the human form. Once this happens, no one should DPS the demon and the warlock will pick it up. Players should move away from the warlock to avoid the Chaos Blast splashes, and continue to DPS the human form while avoiding the whirlwind until it dies, at which point the fight is over. I hope you guys found this guide helpful. If you did find it helpful, please drop a like and subscribe for more future TBC videos. Cheers.